Welcome back to the Maximum News. I apologize in advance if I sound lethargic. My allergies are killing me. It's the damn cat. My fiance has a cat, and I stay with her. Thankfully, it's not life-threatening, but it is getting to me. But anyways, you're not here to hear me talk about that. You're here to hear us talk about video game news. And I'm happy to announce that all the stories today have a positive element. And how often can you say that about gaming news, Syb? Oh, and of course, I have my lovely co-host, Sybsidian from the Triple S League. How you doing, dude?
I'm doing good. We have some good news this week, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to tell people about it? The first thing?
Yeah. So the biggest update that we have is that the Wizards of the Coast have rejected the idea of rewriting the OGL.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great news.
Well, okay, before we get too in-depth with that, do you want to just tell people that may not have listened to the last few shows where we've talked about that?
Yeah, well, it's basically Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro did one of the greediest, most money manipulative, open competition, which I'll get to why that's a thing that you don't want to do as a company, typically. And they decided that they were just going to remove the ability for people to create content and then profit off that content in some way, or just make it without having to jump through hoops. So if you wanted to make a comic or a short story or something like that based in the D&D universe, essentially it was super easy before. You just follow a few handful of rules in the OGL, and you're able to do basically whatever you want. And then you can even monetize some of it. But there's still some things that you had to do and some things you had to include. You had to include the copyright. You had a bunch of other stuff. And they took that and they said, no, nobody can make content without our direct approval. And we'll also take 25% off the top of what you earn, not your profits, but off. So if you print 1,000 books and then you sell those 1,000 books, they're going to take 25% of the sales of all of those books before taxes and before you pay the print house.
So it's actually a lot more that you're losing overall.
Oh yeah, no. Most books, most things, most products have a profit range of like 10% ish. That tends to be the ballpark. Now some companies, they say that is, and we can argue about that, but that is fair. If you're going to employ somebody doing, say, yard work, right? Set up a simple company, mow people's grass. Very simple, very straightforward thing. If you want to employ people, if you're paying them, $10 an hour, I'm just using that as a round ballpark figure. It's just a ballpark figure. You want to make at least $11.50 back. At least $11.50 back, because that covers your costs, right? So You're sending them out to do something and you're making $1.50. That's 15%. That's the baseline. If somebody came in and said, but you got to pay me $2.50 for employing that person to do that thing, you would be out of a job, and so would the person that you hired. That's just because it just doesn't really roll in that. And again, that's a super basic example. So that's what they did. They also put up a lot of things that would have prevented anybody from creating another Critical Role, high successful show. They would have had the right to just demand your financial records, and you had already signed your waiver saying that they could do that at any moment. So you know how much people love being audited, right?
What year is it? I know it's a joke, but yeah, it's my favorite pastime. Right next to yanking the individual hairs out of my arm.
Yeah, imagine being able to be audited by another company who doesn't owe you anything at all, period. And they can just up and demand that whenever they want, and you would be forced to just bend over for them, proverbially speaking.
Yeah. Although it might feel like physically speaking, but go on.
Yeah. Well, probably would feel a significant amount like that as well. So yeah, that was a thing that happened, and everybody got so angry and so mad, including myself, that most of us decided to say, screw it. we're just going to move on to a different tabletop rule set. In fact, not only are we going to move on to our own, we're actually going to make our own and be in direct competition with Wizards of the Coast. And I'm still going ahead with creating my tabletop mechanics because I have a couple of game developers interested in it, and I have a couple of other people interested in it, and it's also going with my book series that I'm writing. I'm writing a high fantasy series. I'm 6 books in, which is about 2.5 million words. So it's a long, large series. Might end up needing to split up the books even more so because they're just really big, and I'm doing a big release sometime in the near future. So yeah, that's what happened, and they saw all the really angry people and went, guys, I don't think this is going to be good for our bottom line. I think this is going to be really bad for our bottom line. And everybody else kind of freaked out at the company. There were to be fair, a lot of the employees, the regular employees, they were really against this from the get-go.
Oh, yeah.
This was absolutely ludicrous. They were like, what are these people doing? The coast was leaking like a sieve, and it was just not going good for them at all. So they said, all right, we're not touching the OGL. And in fact, they've gone one step further. They've actually made the Fallout 5 and 5.1 is now under Creative Commons license. Which is a huge victory, because if you know legal law at all, this is way better than actually the OGL. Because now all you have to do if you want to write about certain things that are in the D&D universe, you just have to list that as, somewhere in your document, like in the back page. And you don't have to list a part of the OGL or a portion of it or anything like that you would have normally had to have done. And then you would have also, under that, you would have had to have stayed away from things like Beholder and, Mind Flayer and stuff like that. Instead, you could just use those now in very, very light context. So this is beyond even what Bethesda allows you to do with the Bethesda modding game tools for their game. This goes beyond what most fandoms are given for free. This is a complete and total polarity shift as far as greedy corporate companies go. They have literally just given away everything for free because they realized what they decided to do.
How badly they messed up. And they figured that this was the one thing that would placate the Dungeons and Dragons nerds, because those are a bunch that you really do not want to mess with.
Yeah. So this is pretty huge. This is a huge win. This guarantees that everybody who's currently doing things like creating source books, like for new classes, doing any kind of content that covers it, having any kind of like making we've talked about figurines, we've talked about a dice tower, which is a cool thing that my brother got for Christmas. It's a little, you put your dice on top and then you push a button and the dice fall down the tower, roll themselves, and then come out on this little gated like area in front of the tower. It's so cool, such a cool little invention. To just roll dice and not have them go all over the table. And it's
not have people think that you're tossing them in like one of the ways that like a professional Las Vegas gambler would.
Yeah, exactly. And that is, again, so huge for the community, so huge for everybody. This is just absolutely massive. And this really opens the door to allowing people to just experience and grow and take the franchise and go in any direction that they want to with it. And that's great. Almost any direction. Still, like, Creative Commons is basically just a super open door. There's, of course, minor very minor things, but I mean, when I say very minor, I mean literally, it's nothing. It's super easy. This is the best move that they could have made. I still want certain people in the company fired because I don't think that they understand how to actually create service. Like, I suspect that they're going to just try to take things back to normal and not actually improve on anything. Again, we've talked about all the things that they can do to start offering us, the players, more customization, more accessibility, more tools and stuff like that they haven't been offering at all, that they really should, because they just haven't been on top of the game when it comes to profiting from this, which is dumb because it's one of the most profitable wings of Hasbro as a whole.
Oh, yeah.
You think that a company as big as Hasbro would have been able to say, "Oh, people like miniatures? Oh, well, we can do that." I mean, we print how many thousands of different kinds of miniatures for all of our other existing products. We'll just pipeline this in super easy. No, they never did anything like that, which, again, it's just so weird that they don't. It's just so bizarre that they just refuse to do that. It's so weird. It's so weird that they just, no, we're not going to do that. And it's like, it's free money. It's just sitting there. It's like Nintendo with their games. It's like there's millions of people that are willing to pay you for old games that they can't play anymore. Oh, we don't want it.
Right.
Like, why? So yeah, this is huge. This is big. This is congrats to everybody who raised their voices. And if you canceled your D&D 1 Beyond, if you did if you were threatening to boycott the movie or Baldur's Gate 3, those all made a huge impact and made this go this way. Yeah. And this is absolutely huge. And I want to say that I don't mean to presume to judge for you, but I would highly encourage that if any of you guys were interested or thinking about boycotting either the movie or Baldur's Gate 3, please don't anymore, because this was such a huge, resounding win that, and also that those two other entities, they weren't tied to Hasbro. They're only in a partnership with them. It's a very loose partnership with a unique rule set and licensing agreement on their own. Baldur's Gate, I talked about this last week. There's no reason for you to boycott Baldur's Gate even before this mess was going on, because they had their own licensing rule that bypassed all of that stuff. And a lot of experts legally were saying, well, I would highly recommend you, for a lot of people to shift your stuff over to Baldur's Gate things, if you had something ongoing that you're about to release, because that system there would have been better. Now it's under Creative Commons, and now it's fine. They can just go ahead. But that rule and the opened already, I mean, they've already, there's so many mods for that game already. Sev at Larian was super huge on keeping the modding community engaged and really opening up doors for them. It was super huge to their success in Divinity Original Sin 2, that this was like, yes, they have to do this, obviously. And so these products, I would say, let's check out the movie next month. It drops, I believe it drops.
It comes out in February?
I'm pretty sure it's Valentine's Day.
Oh.
I could be wrong, but let me just double check.
I'm inclined to check that movie. It actually looks good. And I'm kind of surprised. I mean, you can't really get any worse than the original one, right? But yeah.
Oh, sorry, no, it's March. It's March.
March. Okay, well, right on. We have
yeah. So it's coming very shortly. It will be out very, very quickly. And again, the rules that were there, even if you boycott it today, it doesn't really affect it. It really only hurts them now for the franchise and whatnot directly through Paramount.
Right.
So it's like, and you might not like Paramount for other reasons. That's fine. Like I said, that's entirely up to you. I'm just saying that it's really at a point now where I think we don't have to do that, because not only did they listen, they came way closer. They didn't do what so many studios or companies have done in the past, where they're like, fine, I'm going home and I'm taking my toys with me too, right? And they stormed off, right?
Scare
They
you
didn't do that.
guys? Yeah.
They came forward and said, we're sorry. We totally misunderstood everything on this. This was our bad. Not only are we going to not touch the OGL, we're actually going to put everything under a Creative Commons license, which again is so huge because there is so much more now that a lot of people can do, that they don't have to worry about that anymore, that they can actually go, oh, okay, I can create this kind of content, and they're not getting any cut of that pie, other than it's just being, successful. This is the best outcome. This is a better outcome than we thought we could possibly get.
Yeah. And it's an even better outcome, like I'm sure Hasbro doesn't realize this right now, but it's a better outcome for them overall, because they were, what people don't realize is that they have been making record profits over at Hasbro, even under the OGL. And by maintaining this, they're still going to be able to do it. And, like I've heard a couple of devil's advocate people say that, look, they're just trying to protect their IP. And I get protecting your IP. But when you're trying to do all that retroactive stuff with the 25% and, after, just...
Let me tell you why protecting your IP and allowing competition within your IP, within yourself and your community, why that's actually good.
Yeah.
And the best example I can give for this is probably Overwatch on its initial release. This is a great example because Blizzard and Disney and a couple other companies have learned that there is this thing called Rule 30. I believe it's 34.
Oh my god!
I'm not super familiar with this, but there's this thing, I believe it's called Rule 34, and that is that some people take content like, Mickey Mouse or Goofy or Overwatch, Tracer from Overwatch, and they make things out of them that are not necessarily friendly to the desired core audience, right? Like, just
I beg to differ.
We can't even talk about it.
I beg to differ because
some sandwich making process involved, as we call it here on the channel. There's some sandwich making that goes on, or whatnot, and so that's all fine. Now, they have learned that you can't fight against this, because trying to fight against this just bogs you down, because if the community wants it to happen, it's going to happen, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. You can't even go after it hard. And we know this because other companies like Nintendo have. And they got bogged down into decade-long lawsuits, which resulted in them losing anyways. And then because they told people no, and they made it clear that it really bothered them that when they did this, people went out of their way to do it more. Because I don't know if you know this, but when you tell a human no, you can't do that, sometimes some people just do that again just to spite you. Because, they're like Cartman, don't tell me what to do.
You're not my real mom.
Yeah.
Real dad. Sorry.
So when you just go, okay, we're definitely not going to encourage this. We're not going to call attention to it constantly. We're just going to know that it's there, and we're just going to tell creators that on board. I remember talking to a fellow who had a thing that Disney bought to turn into a show or something like that, and they pulled him into a room. And I've heard this from multiple different sources now too. So as in other people reporting on the same story. So I know this is true. They pulled him into a room and they showed him a whole bunch of stuff that he could barely believe was real. And they're like, you have to understand that if we make a show, your show, if we buy this IP from you and we create this show, this is what's going to happen to your content. Are you going to be okay with that? Because we can't stop it. It's fair use under the law, and it's under parody rights. We can't tell them no, so you just have to be aware that this is going to happen to your stuff, and we aren't going to legally hunt down these people because it's not a win-win for anybody. It only will make it happen more, and they will anger them. So we just kind of let sleeping gods lie. So, and I said gods. It's like, it's because it's like this all powerful thing of like, if you make your community angry, there's not much you can do in the way of recovering from that. And your community can be filled with all kinds of different people with all kinds of different tastes. So just generally though, is it really that bad for you? And the answer is no. Because again, if you look over at the Blizzard situation, if you're smart and you allow creativity to flow via a map editor, you get things like Dota and then League of Legends that come out of Warcraft 3. They came directly out of Warcraft 3 as
DayZ
a mod.
from Arma, Counter-Strike from Half-Life, yeah.
Now, if you're dumb and you don't know how to capitalize on it, then obviously you do what Blizzard did, which was, you get angry that you don't own Dota, instead of reaching out to work with them from the get-go, which they really should have. And then it would have been under their title that Dota officially released. Actually, it would have been League of Legends, because the guy who originally, like one of the core original team members who worked on the original Dota in Warcraft 3's thing, he actually was the one who founded Riot Studios. And now Riot is Blizzard's they're literally their biggest competitor, because they're making products that are going to be directly competing with them in about a year and a half here, 2 years. And so that's absolutely huge. And so again, they were kind of stupid in this, but if going forward, most people know that if your community starts to build something that looks like it's taking off, the faster you can like come in and be like, hey guys, we love what you're doing. Would you like to do it for us full time? We'll give you a big cushy office. The faster you can do that, the faster you can retain brilliant new content. And again, very few companies know how to do this properly, and we haven't seen a lot of that going on, but that's still there as something that continues to grow. And not everything steals away an audience. Some things just help to encourage that audience to continue to grow. There's a reason why I think Overwatch has done, up until this disastrous release of Overwatch 2, has done as well as it has, and that's because it's a cultural staple in young culture now.
Yep.
Everybody knows most of those characters. Everybody knows most of those characters and the related rule. Is it Rule 34? I'm pretty sure it is.
Yes.
Like I said, I'm not very familiar with it at all. But the fact that, their community members and the people who play their products are intimately aware of this thing and this rule and like it just cements that in as a cultural constant even more so. So that's why you actually want competition. You don't want to close the door, slam the door in people's face. You don't have to go after people, because you will lose. It's a losing scenario. It's equivalent to running into a concrete pillar as fast as you can. It's just not going to work out for you. The best thing to do is go, all right, it's there now. We have to deal with it. Probably we'll just end up ignoring it for the most part. But hey, if something cool starts to develop over there, maybe we'll use that.
Yeah.
Maybe we can understand why. And I really wish Cliff Belinsky could come to understand why he failed in his Overwatch clone shooter thing. It wasn't because of big business. It wasn't because of the nature of gamers in the way that he thinks it is. It was because his characters all looked like homeless drug addicts, and not somebody you would, bang. I'm told that has some meaning. I don't know what it means,
right.
But I was told somebody said, hey,
okay.
use the word bang. It makes sense.
We got to move on, but just to cap off this conversation, because you brought up Overwatch, I'm just going to share a funny statistic that I came across the other day. I was on Twitter, and Overwatch showed up in my trending feed on the right side of the screen. I clicked on it, and one of the random tweets that just popped up showed statistics from Pornhub. And
Prawn Hub, yes.
Prawn
the
Hub,
seafood, the people who sell the seafood, yes, online, yeah.
yes, and guess which character was searched like far and above everybody else?
I believe is it Mai, or is it, or because it was originally Tracer, but then it was like kind of Tracer, then it was the sniper lady, I can't remember her name, and then
Nope.
So is it Mai though?
Nope.
Oh, it's not really.
No, really.
Okay. That I'm, like I said, I'm not very familiar with this, so.
All right. To anybody that's wondering, it was Diva.
Oh yeah. Of course. Oh, I totally forgot about her. Yeah, no, of course it's Diva.
The one that all the scrub tanks choose to play. No, I'm being facetious. But anyways, let's move on to the next thing. So originally, Cy, we were going to record last night. We're recording this show on Monday for release on Tuesday. We were going to record on Sunday.
But something happened. What happened?
Prime Video was messing up, man. I was trying to watch The Last of Us Episode 3, but for whatever reason, I just happened to try and watch it on the one app that wasn't working. Thankfully, people on Twitter helped me realize, hey, if you try to go through HBO Max directly instead of trying to access HBO Max through Prime Video, you can watch it. And I did, but we had to postpone the show for a day. Now, before I get my thoughts on Episode 3, as I have on Episode 2 and one of the previous two shows, Sybe, I gotta ask you, have you watched it yet?
No, I did not have time this week.
Okay, all right, no problem. So, here are my quick thoughts on Episode 3. So, I was very interested in this episode, as were a lot of people, because we can sort of expect what's going to happen in the episodes based on how they line up with events in the game. So, without spoiling anything, we knew that this episode was going to focus on the character of Bill from the game, which was particularly interesting to me and a lot of people because we know a few things about his backstory from the game, but they aren't really fleshed out. He's more so of a character that Joel and Ellie can react to. But because, this is a narrative series and a passive viewing experience rather than an active one that you typically get in a game, you have to give more backstory to work off of with this character. Or at least you have to do something to make it work. And I'm happy to say that, just like everybody else has said online the last 24 hours, it's another great episode. It's better than it was last week. And in some respects, it comes very, very close to the greatness of the very first episode. The only thing that I can say that might be off about the episode... Well, no, actually, there are a couple of other things. But the main thing that I want to just focus in on in regards to the negative is that it's probably too great in some respects.
Too great. I mean, I was thinking the only way they could make that too great is if they got somebody like Nick Offerman to, and brought in the character from Parks and Rec, Ron Swanson, to be some kind of like survivalist prepper or something like that. But there's no way they did that.
Well, he does give the performance of his lifetime, but it's not necessarily because he does the job like... It's not because of the whole prepper angle of that character. Now, here's what I mean by too great. So the things that are great... Gosh, how do I explain this? So the episode focuses on the characters of Bill and his partner, Frank. We don't really get a whole lot of that in the game. It's expanded here. It's... The whole focus of this episode is mainly on those two characters and exploring their relationship together and trying to exploit it in all the right ways for its emotional value. And by focusing in on that, it does some of the most beautiful emotional storytelling that I've seen in a long time. Unfortunately, because it just focuses in on those things so well and to the detriment of everything else, there are one or two things that made me want to see more of. It's the characters become too good that you wish that there was stuff around them that could have been explored more. But we know, if you know anything about the game, that basically Bill just shows up and then he's gone, and it's basically the same thing for this episode. So what you were just saying about Nick Offerman playing a prepper, yes, we do get to see Bill as the prepper.
Ron Swanson. I think you mean we get to see Ron Swanson.
Okay, I've never seen Parks and Rec, so I don't really know what the reference is. Sorry.
Oh, that is too bad. You're gonna have to look that up later.
Yeah, man, I've heard wonderful things about Parks and Rec. Maybe that's the next sitcom.
Just watch a YouTube highlight. You don't have to watch the whole series. Just watch a 20-minute best parts of. And you'll get why that's so funny.
All right, right on. Well, So the thing is, we do see that element of Bill and how he's sort of like a paranoid conspiracy type guy. Like we get that in the game, we get this in the TV show, but we don't really get to see that element of him as much. And I really think that even though the stuff that they do instead is done really, really well, it sort of makes this stuff that they do in regards to the prepper conspiracy stuff seem shallow in comparison. So it's sort of just there and it's okay, but because it's there, do you know what I'm trying to say, Syb? It's not distractingly bad or anything, but it just sort of hampers this episode from being like a complete 10 out of 10 for me, and instead it's just a 9 out of 10. And then just a couple other things. One minor thing towards the very end of the episode, I won't spoil, but Bill does something really weird and dumb that you wouldn't expect a guy as intense and with such attention to detail that he has for everything, that he would do this. It involves a gun, but that's all I'll say. And then a couple of other things, because the episode really, really tries to go at pulling at the heartstrings, and it's 95% of the time very successful at this. There is a 5% where I can just tell, like, they're writing this or getting them to say or do something in a specific way where it just teeters a little bit into the melodramatic for me. Right? That's just for me. But like I said, very, very minor criticisms. Overall, wonderful episode. It lived up to my expectations and in a lot of ways exceeded it. Syb, you need to get on watching this show, man. It's killer television. I'm so happy with the way this show is turning out.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me hopeful for more stuff. And like I said, I've been saying for a while, the best part of this is the hope that we will see really good shows for games and IPs that I want to see. There was a bit of a Twitter thing going around by some big people who were talking about, we've got rumors that Tomb Raider is going to be the next thing that's turned into a TV series.
Yeah,
that is going to be grouped up with some other stuff to create a ginormous multiverse, the Tomb Raider multiverse. And there's talk about Nathan Drake being pulled into it.
That'd be cool.
And again, this kind of proves that Sony. The argument was like, wow, Sony is sitting on all of these IPs that they could just pull together. And I believe it was, I can't remember, it was somebody from Microsoft itself who also stated just recently that the success of Last of Us proves that there's been no reason why Sony should have been as hostile as they have been to Microsoft, because they've just been sitting on a lot of great stuff that they just arrogantly and foolishly have not been trying to work with.
Wait, so what you're saying is if we treat the IPs with respect and get
something that people
talented
actually like,
writers on board that actually care about the source material, we can make even more hundreds of millions of dollars off these IPs? Is that what you're telling me?
It?
Oh my
Shocking.
God. Now, Sony, if you're listening, I got 3 words for you, okay? Metal Gear Solid. Get on it.
I don't think they can do Metal Gear Solid because...
Yes, they can. Shh. Sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, but no, this
wait, no. Hold on. Why can't they do Metal Gear?
It's owned by Kojima. Sorry, Konami. Oh gosh, I always mix those two names up.
Well, actually, no. Yeah, Konami owns it, but they can outsource the rights.
Yeah, but they won't because they're sitting on them. They have expressed a high. They've expressed from all of the context that I have in Japan, which is way more than I have in North America.
Well, that's not true though, because we've seen Jordan Vogt Roberts, the guy who directed Kong Skull Island, in publicly trying to he hired Oscar Isaac to play Solid Snake, even though the movie isn't in full development yet. It is a project that Konami is pursuing, and Sony.
Yeah, but as far as like the multiverse stuff, like incorporating it into other things.
Oh, and then yeah, of course.
Just in general, of like, Konami is not willing to play ball very much. They have so many stipulations and rules that I'll be shocked if that movie actually gets made, because their rules, their requests, their demands are ludicrous, to say the least.
Right.
So I don't know if somebody's going to be able to talk them down from it. I don't know if they'll actually be able to go ahead with this, but it basically just boils down to an absolute ludicrous level of like, oh no, we demand full control over this, over that. We're not letting anybody do this. We're not letting anybody do that. The project and everything it's just mine. It's greed on such a level that is disgusting.
Yeah, I agree in regards to the multiverse stuff. And sorry, just to clarify something, because I think I understand where there's a little bit of confusion. Jordan Vogt Roberts, he was given control of the Metal Gear Solid project under Sony. So I don't know what it is, but apparently there's some sort of licensing deal where Sony has the rights to make the Metal Gear Solid movie. Konami's already licensed that out as a potential project, even though it hasn't gone into full production yet. So that's what I was getting at. But yeah, in regards to the multiverse stuff, yeah, there's no way. Yeah. So
no, and the thing I was getting at is that they have they're still trying to keep their fingers in control there. And sure. I mean, that's probably good, right? Bethesda's doing that with the Fallout show, and I'm hoping that is made really, really well. But we'll see.
You want Konami to have a lot of creative control over a Metal Gear movie and not Kojima?
No.
Right. Well, I'll tell you something that will make you happy. I know, even though he's gone quiet recently, the director of this prospective movie, he has been in contact with Kojima a lot. So he's going to be taking creative consultation from him more so than Konami. So don't worry about that. Anyways,
I hope so. Like I said, I've been so put off by these giant corporations and their stupidity. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. Speaking of giant corporations and their stupidity, let's talk about Blizzard, because it's been a minute since we talked about them. So Blizzard apparently is suspending their license with NetEase. Now, people who don't know what NetEase is, they are a company that allows online games to be hosted in China. The license that NetEase had with Blizzard expired on the 23rd, so about 8 days ago at the time of this video's release. And what that means is that as of this moment, for the past week, games from Blizzard, including World of Warcraft, Warcraft 3 Reforged, Hearthstone, Overwatch, StarCraft, all the StarCraft games, the Diablo games, and Heroes of the Storm are unplayable in China, with the exception of Diablo Immortal, because apparently that was done under a separate agreement. Some of the executives involved with all this had stuff to say publicly. Simon Zhu, the president of global investments and partnerships at NetEase, said the following on LinkedIn the day of this expiration. He said, quote, "One day, when what has happened behind the scenes could be told, developers and gamers will have a whole new level of understanding of how much damage a jerk can make." Who's the jerk? I wonder if it's a guy whose last name begins with the same begins and ends with the same letters. Um, but it's not like I'm defending Simon Jew and NetEase. Like, apparently, according to Bloomberg, who was reporting on all this, they said that key sticking points which made the license unrenewable was NetEase's desire to control Chinese player data, as well as ownership of IP. And I don't really know what they mean by that. Like, ownership of the IP. Like, Blizzard owns the IPs for all this. Does that mean like ownership of how long they can have exclusive rights to provide this online service? I don't know. Anyways, the point that I guess I'm just trying to get at here is, Blizzard, maybe you should have stepped away from all that anti-Hong Kong sentiment a year or two ago. Remember Blitzchung? You remember all that? Was that worth it? Anyways, Saib, any thoughts on all this crap? Do you think that Blizzard's going to eventually get a new partner to work with on this?
Well, this was a double whammy because they also had the whole info about one of their team leads.
Right, we're going to get to them in a second. I wanted to,
okay.
yeah.
So just this whole NetEase thing, they weren't making it like this was really bad. This really hurt their brand, because you see them doing all this stuff to pander to the government and do all these things that were anti-player, really, when it came down to it, not caring about a lot of stuff. Now, again, a lot of those players were definitely on the other side of the Blitzchung thing, demanding that he be executed for treason, which is kind of crazy. But this just goes to show that it's a monster that is really hard to play with. The whole Chinese market in gaming, because you have to have one of these companies that have ties to the government. You have to give them an enormous amount of data. You have to basically give them everything that can be used essentially against you. And we see it in the fact that almost immediately Overwatch was banned. That wasn't part of the deal. Overwatch was supposed to stay active, but not only did they get kicked out for World of Warcraft, but the government decided, hey, we're just gonna cancel your ability to do Overwatch and sell Overwatch, because again, those government people who were having a very nice cushy job were suddenly out of a job. So what do they tell their supervisors? Whatever they want to make them turn against them. I'm trying to dance around way too many words because of this whole thing. And we've gotten hit before talking about this kind of stuff, which really sucks. And I don't want it to happen again, despite the fact that, screw them, screw most parties involved there, because because they abhor the idea that people can have freedom. It's pretty disgusting, but it's also, again, like Blizzard walked into this one. Well, Activision really walked into this one. It's like, what did you expect? You were dealing with people and companies that don't care about you at all and just want to take everything that you have. It's kind of like dealing with yourself, because that's how you treated the players for so long. Haha, zinger. It's bad. It's really bad. And one of the funniest things to see is how quickly Tencent has come out with a new MMO launching very soon in China. And it's basically just a straight rip of
The Craft of War.
Yeah.
Right. No.
It's basically like the humans look a little bit different. Like they look like their models are updated a little bit. There's still this very like super macho style, but the night elves aren't the night elves and the blood elves exactly the same. Like exactly the same. Like in World of Warcraft, you got like the stereotypical like marketing campaign picture for night elves is like this dark blue skinned woman with dark blue hair and this white, tiger cat with black stripes, and they're just kind of posing together. That's it. That's the intro for this new race in this totally unconnected game that's going to replace World of Warcraft in China. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And there's this scene about this dark dragon sitting on the top of the gates of Stormwind, and again that's replicated almost exactly in this new game. So again, it's kind of this whole like, well, Blizzard, you kind of stepped in it again. Activision, you kind of stepped in it here because these people were never on your side. They were just gathering information and making a game that would eventually replace you, because that's what everybody does when it comes to products in China. They steal everything you have. They steal all your IPs. They steal all your technology. And then when they're ready, they just kick you out and create a new company that directly competes with you.
Dude,
again, this isn't new. This is like,
what's the name? Forgive me for not remembering. No, what's the name of the place that the Night Elves come from? In
Teldrassil.
Teldrassil?
Teldrassil, yeah.
Teldrassil.
And it burned down.
Why don't I remember that? Because I played as a Night Elf back in the day. But yeah, I'm looking at this trailer. You're right. They look like the Night Elves. Oh my God.
It's copy-paste, basically.
Yeah, and like the area that they're in, it looks like Teldrassil. It's ridiculous. And like here, it looks like the area around Ironforge, I think it's called, right? Yeah. Oh my God. God damn.
Again, they're, I hate to say it, but they're sort of like the Sith, you know? Not the Sith. Different universes. What is it? It was Tolkien's universe.
Oh.
They cannot create. They can only manipulate and change, like steal, essentially. It's like they're incapable of creating something original. They have to just take things that already exist and morph them.
Yeah.
That's what you're dealing with, because you're dealing with, again, not the whole of the Chinese people, obviously.
Of course.
You're dealing with a government who this is their mandate. They because their schools told that, whatever the government says is good, and science has to back that up. Nature has to back that up. Every time we make a mistake, well, it's not us making a mistake. This is just, the new reality. And again, it's not just China. It's like North Korea. It's like they're told that their emperor makes the sun rise and set, and that if he dies, there will be no more sun, and the planet will just die in a cold nothingness. It's like, okay, that's a little crazy. But when you're dealing with that, you're not going to have scientific discovery and creative ability isn't really going to be there when you have to change the rules of nature or sidestep them and come up with new stuff. It's like, what did you expect? So yeah, dealing with them from the get-go was probably the worst thing you could do, because you only prop them up more, and then they continue to do that still. It's such a terrible thing. It doesn't work. It's never worked.
By the way, if people want to see what this game looks like, it's called Terrace Land. TARIS Land. It's kind of crazy.
I'm shocked that it's not, that the acronym doesn't say, like, Warcraft.
Yeah.
Like I'm shocked that it wasn't that, but maybe there's some actual creativity going on there, I guess.
Okay. And finally, let's move on to the last story. It's I did say at the beginning of this episode that there's a good element in every story. Most of what this story is situated in is kind of horrible, but the principle that is derived from it is a good one. So there was an employee that was working at Blizzard up until recently, a gentleman by the name of Brian Birmingham. He was working on WoW Classic. He was on that team. And he came out this week to respond to... Sorry, I got a cough. 1 sec.
Jason Schreier.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Jason Schreier. Yeah, wrote an article on Bloomberg. And he was responding to that. And the article stipulated that he left the team and left Blizzard because of this quota system that Blizzard had in place. Now, they hadn't been... I'll detail what the quota system is first. So apparently at Blizzard, after a set amount of time, you have to give your employees reviews, right? Blizzard had it mandated that at least 5% of the people that are being reviewed as a part of the team had to get bad reviews. Or, well, not bad reviews, but they had to be, whatever term they use to define you as bad on their official worksheets. But Brian, he thankfully didn't have to comply with that for the last year or two because apparently it wasn't being enforced during the whole COVID era. But now, and I especially think it was also, it wasn't used because of the whole lawsuits that were happening with Activision Blizzard and are still ongoing to an extent. Sorry, I had a brain fart. Yeah, like because of all that, they didn't want to draw further negative attention to themselves because of stuff like that. So they probably just put a hold on it. Well, now that things have died down, they decided to go back to doing it again. Well, Brian said he refused to do that. And, well, now he's no longer working with the company. He refused to put people in competition with one another, which is a good idea because it's usually better to foster teamwork than to...
It's not competition. It's enforced negative... Sorry, it's enforced negative reinforcement.
Yeah.
So you are being told that you have to find 2 losers within your department, or 3 or 5 or 1 or whatever. And that somebody has to get a pay cut to motivate everybody else to work harder. Again, you would not do this to a dog because dogs don't react well to this training. You'll get a nervous wreck of a dog if you do negative reinforcement constantly. The same works here. And Mooney and I have dealt with this level, this absolutely piece of garbage mentality and way to run a company for years, and we have never seen it work out positively. We're always coming up against this being a negative experience for everybody involved. This was created in the late 80s by GM. GM did it, and it ended up working so badly that they had to drop it. Microsoft took it and tried to improve upon it, and that gave them the entire 90s and early aughts where none of their products were good at all, and they almost lost their hold on the entire industry, and it just got worse for them. Everywhere anybody's tried it, it is constantly failing. The only thing that it's good for is a temporary boost in profits by taking money away from people that you're paying to do stuff. And eventually that catches up with you. Eventually it's no longer functionable. Eventually people just decide, you know what? I'm just going to do the bare minimum and not care. And eventually that will ruin your company because you have this, it's like a rocket. Take off with your initial concepts, ideas, IPs, and all the hard work that everybody's doing. And then you're getting up into the stratosphere and you're like, oh, this is great. All right, we're going to fire all those people. We're going to replace them with worker drones that do exactly what we tell them. And we're going to not care about creating actual good products for our customers. And we're not going to care a rat's butt about anybody else. We're only going to be doing the investors. And for a while, you get this second stage and it's like, oh, look at all this great stuff. Everything is going great. But what you don't realize is that you just killed your fuel source to get up into orbit, and gravity is eventually going to catch up with you, and it's not going to be good.
Right.
That's what's going on here. Moon and I have dealt with this for years, and again, I cannot say enough as to the absolute incompetency of this program. It doesn't work. It has never worked. It doesn't work. You don't teach a dog anything by negative reinforcement. Why you would try to do that with people outside of a prison, and you don't even do that in a prison. I remember gosh, I remember reading a report. It's like, actually, it turns out that positive reinforcement is actually way better for prison behavior than negative reinforcement.
Yeah.
It's like,
Have
no,
you guys
really?
never seen Oz? Remember what
Oh
happened?
my God. It's, and so, yeah, it just doesn't work. And why Blizzard decided, or again, Activision. Blizzard used to run this tool, and it was so bad that they booted it out. Then they got bought out by Activision, and Activision brought it back because they run it over there, and it seems to work great because somebody at the top makes a lot of money when he constantly takes it away from other people.
Yes, sorry, to be on that note, just to be very specific, apparently it's not Mike Ybarra.
No,
CEO. It's
and
people above him.
That's the dumb thing. Yeah, that's the dumb thing, and why this is so difficult. Mike doesn't have that much control at the company. He can't even decide whether or not he's going to allow somebody to get fired based off of them refusing to punish somebody else who doesn't deserve it, and all their own interior data sets show that. It's like, oh my goodness, they can't. Activision can't win. It's so bad. It's so bad.
Everything they do, everything they touch, like the one thing they came close to having recently in my mind that was a win was Crash Team Racing, but then they just made it impossible to progress at a reasonable rate in that game, and then they brought in microtransactions, and it's like, nope, I'm done. Yep. Well, anyways, the good element that I was referring to here is that, Brian, you're a hero. I salute you for your principle, and I hope that you move on to greener pastures. I'm sure you will. Yeah, it's just a crappy situation. Hopefully, like what Hasbro learned when their ultimate bottom line was affected, that's what will happen with Activision Blizzard. That or Microsoft just decides to move around their management a little bit. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for bearing with my lethargy and joining us for this episode of Maximum News. Listen, make sure you hit that like button if you like this episode, if you like the insight that we provided. Leave a comment down below if you have any thoughts or criticisms on anything that Cyber or I said. I want to thank Cyber, as always, for joining me for this episode of Maximum News. Cyber, you want to tell people about the main Triple S League channel real quick?
Yeah, check us out on the Triple S League on YouTube. We've got a bunch of stuff coming up. We're going to be streaming. We just went out the other day and bought Mooney a brand new computer because the stream that we tried to do for Hi-Fi Rush technically was terrible. It was so bad, and we do apologize for that. It was the quality was not there, and it really just comes down to the fact that Mooney's working off of an 8-year-old computer. With updates and stuff like that, but it's just, we've come to the point now where we've realized that she really needs an actual new computer. So we went out, we invested in that, so she's going to be able to do a lot more streaming functionally without things crashing constantly. And so that's going to be, we're going to be streaming, of course, we're going to be streaming Hogwarts and a whole bunch of games coming up. We've got Wanted Dead and a couple other things that I think we're going to check out this year. And we've got some new exciting stuff that's in the works. Hopefully, we can get those working ASAP. So, yeah,
nice. Yeah. Oh God, Hogwarts Legacy.
I'm looking forward to it. It's good. We've got some really good stuff coming and planned. So yeah, can't wait.
And you guys can just find me at my main channel, just at Max Derrat. I'll put links to that and the Triple S League channel in the description box below. All right, I'm out. Stay yellow. Bye-bye.
Bye.